This is my long-term review for the 2020/2021 M1 MacBook Pro 13-inch display, and hopefully I'm going to have this for almost a decade from this point. And my previous MacBook was a 2016 MacBook Pro, and that lasted me for around 7 years, so I'm expecting the same type of usage with this one. And honestly, the difference between the 2016 MacBook Pro and then this one about 5 years later, and even to this day, because it's basically the same physical design, they just slapped a new chip in it, nothing hasn't really changed. It's this super thin aluminum body. We just have USB-C ports on one side and a headphone jack on the other. We kind of have some bezels on the sides. Sure, the MacBook Pros now, they have a notch, but this does not. The keyboard is very similar. The Force trackpad is very similar. So what makes this MacBook Air even relevant, and why do I like it? Things are mostly the same except for these two major things. Number one is that my old 2016 Intel-based Mac wasn't really getting the latest software versions, and now this MacBook will probably get the latest software versions from Apple for like another 5 years because it has an Apple designed chip. And that is the second big thing. There is a literal step change, like a 2 to 3 fold improvement in the processing power and the efficiency for the battery life and compute power for the CPU of all the MacBooks when Apple switched from Intel to their in-house designed M chips. And now we're on the M3 chip, but the M1 chip that's inside this bad boy can do some serious processing, and like legitimately, kind of like my main use case for a MacBook, other than obviously using for school applications, and I'll talk about that, is video editing. I like to just post these videos for fun, and I edit them on iMovie. I could eventually upgrade to Final Cut Pro, and I'm sure this laptop will easily handle that software, and then I might learn like Photoshop tools in the future with the Adobe Suite. We'll see if I ever get into that, but I just edit my videos for free on iMovie, and the video upload times or processing speeds for exports is just fantastic. Like it feels like a 5x improvement in speeds, and I would hope you would get like obviously a major improvement in speeds after upgrading to a 5-year newer hardware. But like even in 2024, 2025, and beyond, I still really think this MacBook is all you need. And I say that because it's $700 brand new, and you could get it for around $600 Amazon Renewed. And this is an Amazon Renewed product. I haven't had any issues with this type of product. And yeah, I think this MacBook Air is all the average person needs. And average is like 90% of the American population who wants a Mac. And I understand some people are like, oh my gosh, I can't even game on this thing. Like the only game I can play is Stray on the App Store. Great game, but like that's it. And like I understand it, like there's not that many games developed for Mac because not a lot of gamers buy Macs, and it's just kind of like that negative feedback cycle. And it's starting to slightly change. Mac is starting to get some more games for it, but it's definitely nowhere near the PC and console level. So that argument I understand. Another argument I understand is that sometimes the macOS software can't really access certain software applications. And since I'm an engineering student, I've felt this frustration right on. There's definitely been some programs that I just couldn't download from a Mac. But other ones, such as like Sea Lion and MATLAB, I've been able to use them on my MacBook. So it's kind of like a give or take. And honestly, probably having like a MacBook for your laptop and a PC desktop is probably the best combination, but that is a pricey combination, and not everyone can afford that. So I understand why, like if you're going to choose one, only choose a PC laptop. But if you could do both, that's what I would recommend, even though I survive without both. I have like access at any point to use my school Windows computers, So that's how I get around some of my software limitations with the Mac. And I do want to point out, when I had an Intel-based Mac, the fans on this thing and just how warm it would get with just like mostly basic tasks was kind of slightly alarming. But with this, I barely hear the fans even when I'm exporting a full like 20-minute 1080p video, when I've been watching entertainment for like hours, or when I hook up a movie from HDMI from my laptop to the TV. Yeah, it's pretty quiet. And because it's quiet and it doesn't have to run the fans all the time, the battery life is actually also amazing. And I do want to talk about the upcoming macOS features, because one of the things that I've loved about Windows for a while is the window snapping. So if you want to go like halvesies with 2 Google Chrome tabs, you usually can, because you just snap it into place, snap it into place. And that is finally coming on the next macOS version. I can't do it now, but it's about to come. Great thing about Apple's software team. And some other features that are coming to the M1 Max and newer, so the M2 and M3 chips, is Apple Intelligence, Apple's version of AI. And it's going to come with some interesting features, kind of like ChatGPT, where you could just rewrite emails, but like built into the system. You're going to have the Gen emoji, generative AI emojis, so you could generate any emoji you want. Everyone's hating on this like one generative image of someone's mom out there. I don't know really the use cases of Apple Intelligence. I will be trying it out when it comes to my M1 Mac and my phone later in the fall. So far, it's like, I don't know what use case I'm going to get it that's more than like the Geminis and ChatGPTs out right now and what I use those for. But it's apparently going to be more personalized and with a big emphasis on privacy. I don't know how much data I put on my devices so that it can be personalized and useful, because I mean, I'm sure a lot of us keep information off of our phones still, and events happen in our lives that aren't discussed like in text messages. But a lot of things are, like, you're going to buy airplane tickets and it's going to show up in your email, and if Apple somehow knows you're going on the flight, you could make accommodations with that somehow, ask it for an itinerary with your hotel location possibly. I don't know, those are just potential applications. But because there was such a step change in chip performance going from the Intel based chips to the Apple design chips, the M1, despite it being like 4 years old now, with like when the 2020 version came out, it's still getting the latest Apple Intelligence software. Meanwhile, for the iPhones, and obviously like a laptop should be more powerful because you're paying more money up front, even though, I mean, you're paying $700 for this and the latest iPhones are $1,000. Only the iPhone 15 Pro is getting support for Apple Intelligence. None of the previous versions. So even though this is kind of an older Mac, this is getting Apple Intelligence. And for many people, who cares about Apple Intelligence right now? I mean, you never know how powerful of a tool it could be. And even though I said this is basically the same type of physical form as the 2016 MacBook Pro, which is like that big year that Apple completely changed the whole physical design, going from the 2015 to the 2016. They removed a bunch of ports, stuck to USB-C, and added that horrible butterfly keyboard, even though I'm perfectly fine with this keyboard. I don't know, I'm not like a gamer who needs like the super low latency. I'm a normal person. I do some school assignments on Canvas on this thing, type up some essays, look up homework problems on different various websites. Nothing too crazy of use cases, so I don't need the legendary keyboard that some people might require. But one of the new things with this physical form is this Touch ID power button. And honestly, whenever Apple got rid of the Touch ID, going from the iPhone 7 to the iPhone X, I was like, yeah, get rid of Touch ID. Who needs Touch ID? Just bring Face ID. And I think I actually prefer Touch ID rather than Face ID for this, because if I could exchange more screen real estate and have a Touch ID rather than going with Face ID, I'd rather do that, even though this doesn't have bezels. So it's kind of a weird argument I'm making there. But the Touch ID, super responsive, feels great, and I have no complaints. I do wish I had a touch bar, but the MacBook Airs don't have that anymore. Apple's kind of moving away from the touch bar, sadly, because I actually kind of like this technology. But apparently, a lot of people won't pay the extra $200 for it, for that little strip of OLED. I thought it was a neat feature, but I guess for a lot of people, they thought it was a gimmick. And that's it for my MacBook review. Just some other quick things. I'm excited that I'm going to be able to use my iPhone on my Mac with the upcoming software. I think it's called macOS Sequoia. And I'm glad that my iPhone and my Mac are the same charging port and data port. That is amazing. USB-C is exquisite. And yeah, I think there's not a better bargain than buying a $620 MacBook laptop. Like, I'm sure a bunch of college students every single year are so negligent that they're like buying a brand new latest M3 MacBook Air for like $1,200 straight from Apple, when they could save half that cost and get the exact same use out of it. Because if you're not doing, I don't know, crazy 3D modeling or doing like 10,000 lines of C++ code in an IDE environment, I don't know what you got to be doing, like 100 layers of Lightroom for you to justify the M3 chip. Because for the M1 chip, that's going to cover all your applications. And I'll stand by that, and I think this is truly what anyone needs from a laptop.